What would happen if we all tried to be like Santa and learned to give, as only he can give, of ourselves, our talents, our love, and our hearts? Maybe if we could all learn Santa's beautiful lesson, maybe there would finally be peace on earth and goodwill toward man.
Welcome, fans of AfterBuzz TV's The Christmas 24/7. It's the 6 months of Christmas, episode 3. I'm your host, Keven Undergaro. I'm joined today by my great elf friend, Jeffrey Graham. Jeffrey, how are you?
Kevin, I am very excited for this show. I had a homework assignment, which was to read a little bit about the town we're discussing today, and I was on the edge of my seat. Very, very compelling story we're presenting to our fans today.
Yes, I have many thoughts, many questions, and of course, much to relay to our fans. I think this story of a Christmas ghost town that actually exists called Christmas, Arizona, one of the most bizarre stories, certainly. And yeah, I'm really super excited to cover it. What else are we going to go over tonight, Jeff?
So, of course, that's the meat of our show, guys. We're going to be going in depth on this amazing kind of cultural staple of American pop culture, which is Santa Claus, Arizona. I think it's this incredible story that not only teases the origin of this town, but says a lot about our country. I think it's a really interesting story. I can't wait to get into it. But we also have, of course, some store decoration updates. Kevin and I both noticed something. Mm-hmm. We will be having a holiday debate, which we're going to call our Holiday Debate. There may be more than one of these in future episodes.
I'm sure there's going to be many.
Yes. And that's going to be about what to do with Christmas with Santa Claus, Arizona, once you hear about the fate of this town. And we have some holiday hero segments, which is, of course, people that we're shouting out who live by the mission of this show, which is to extend and promote the spirit of the holidays.
And help you prepare as well.
A
little bit. All right. So, Jeff, do we just dive right in? I'm going to... because I'm getting close to Santa age myself, I have to put on the spectacles.
I think we need to dive right in, Kev, but this is an incredible story about the birth of this town.
So I want to give a shout out to a writer by the name of Douglas C. Town. Really a fantastic writer. He and I had been going back and forth. I had spoken to a couple of historians who were familiar with the history of Arizona, and they all led me to Robert.
Yeah.
They were like, listen, we can give you the basics on Arizona. It's a kooky state. When you think about the OK Corral, the gunfight at the OK Corral, which didn't even take place at the OK Corral, the Grand Canyon, the Hoover Dam. I mean, it's just, there's a lot going on there that would surprise you about the state of Arizona. But they referred me to this journalist, Douglas C. Town, and he and I were able to go back and forth a little bit. And the bulk of what I found came through him.
Wow.
He's by his own admission, he said, I know more about this town than I probably should. I've studied it for years. And I it's always nice to just read it from a journalist in this like new world of fake news and cutting corners and just kind of slapping content together and repurposing other people's content. I mean, it was so nice to read an article that was so well written and well stated. So I just want to say that up front.
Definitely. I'm a huge fan of The Atlantic and the New Yorker and sort of these bastions of American journalism that are really interested in human interest stories. I think Malcolm Gladwell, these types of writers who really let curiosity be the beacon that guides them as they write. And I want to quickly also shout out, speaking of curiosity, we have our producer Ryan in the booth, who is also decked out in Christmas clothes. Ryan, how you feeling?
Right. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Christmas starts in August, and we are here in September. I'm really curious about this town. When I came out here, we drove through Arizona, stayed in Flagstaff, and I didn't see a lot of Christmas stuff, but it was snowing the entire time. So I would love to learn more about this. Douglas C. Town, we were just pulling up an image. He does one of those great historic books on historic heritage, and so we have an image of it right here.
Great.
Which I believe he talks about the Christmas town in Arizona.
Wonderful.
Okay, so you guys, this story, it begins and it really centers on a young woman, maybe an older woman, but depends on how you see it. Ninon, and then parentheses, Kelly Talbot. So Kelly must have been what she went by, but Ninon is what everyone refers to her as.
I think it's French. Ninon, do we think?
Ninon.
Perhaps.
So she's born in the late 1880s in Montana. She has a husband who's in the motion picture business, and what her thing is not motion pictures, it's real estate. She's also a very big woman, purported to be about 300 pounds. But she's a show person in the truest sense, because she heralds herself in the 1920s as the biggest real estate agent in Los Angeles.
I love it.
Okay, so not based on the amount of sales, but based on her size. But her and her husband end up moving to Kingman, Arizona, at some point, and probably it looks like it's probably in the early 30s. Actually, yeah, it was right around the time of the building of the Hoover Dam. So the Hoover Dam goes up in 1931, and around that same time, her and her husband open their first inn called the Kit Carson Inn. Kit Carson's an explorer, famous in Arizona. And one of the things she's known for is her cooking. She's an amazing cook.
Yep. Probably part of the reason that she is the 300-pound woman that we all love.
Probably.
There's sometimes a correlation with a Rubenesque woman and a incredible cook. So
Also kind of speaks to something you learn about her later, probably not very disciplined.
maybe not very disciplined.
And like a lot of artists who tend to have voracious appetites. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's drugs, sex, gambling, whatever.
Yes.
So
There are some habits that we'll be getting to later.
about Ninon. And what's happening with the Hoover Dam is, she notices like, wait, this is going to be an Art Deco kind of structure that many people are going to visit. I think it's like one of the 7th engineering wonders of the world, or certainly this country.
Of America, yeah. It's considered one of the 7, I think, engineering marvels of America, which is really interesting.
So she astutely realizes that you're going to have a lot of people working on this, then you're going to have a lot of people visiting it. And it was at a time where Route 66 was, you ever hear that song, Get Your Kicks?
Get your kicks on Route 66. Yeah.
Yeah, and whenever that song came out, which is probably, I don't know, 50s or 60s maybe, it was kind of, I feel like it was kind of it was when 66 was starting to end, because we were starting to have major highways put in. But at the time, you've got Route 66 being put in, and you have a lot of families kind of getting in the old Ford or the old Oldsmobile and doing these drives. And it became very competitive to have more than a gas station, but to have some kind of roadside attraction. So all over the country, all these like unique roadside attractions were popping up.
What I loved about this part of the article too, Kev, was I feel like they were describing not only the culture of, a 2-lane highway and a traveling family, like you mentioned, but how sort of American advertising at that time was so specifically branded. You think of old magazines, and you can picture these giant signs that were sort of more in their heyday at that time. It felt like such an interesting look into what 1930s American culture was like.
The other thing the writer, he had mentioned was the fact that this was a time when people liked to be surprised. Today it's, we're not like that.
Right.
We want to know where we're going. We want to know what we're going to see. And then unfortunately, even along the way, we're used to franchises and things of that nature. But this was a time where it was an adventure. It was a
Perhaps
great
there was
innocent
more
time.
Christmas wonder in the eyes of these families.
Well, just I think wonder in general.
Yeah.
Go back to her cooking. There's a big contractor in the area named W.J. Zink, and he actually builds some of the structures in Christmas, Arizona. And someone got to him to interview him about her. And one of the things he said is, when it came to cooking, he never saw her measure a thing, yet he never saw her make a mistake either. Like her food was so good. Anyway, she must have had a love for the holidays. I mean, she loved making people happy, and she loved people. And usually that goes hand in hand with people who love the holiday season and the spirit of the season. And, she was just like, hey, why rather than 6 months of Christmas as we do here, why don't we do 12 months of Christmas from this little town? And, I'm sure, like a lot of people who have the out-of-the-box idea, everyone thought she was crazy. I'm sure she had more than her share of people fighting against her. But you can tell she just had this drive and this will that you love seeing in people. And sometimes I think in this kind of personality, you have to have a little craziness.
Oh, for sure.
Right? To not just for a crazy idea, but also you're going to be making such incredible sacrifices. I'm sure she was doing fine with the Kit Carson Inn, She just could have left it there, but as you kind of find out, she has a gambling mentality.
Right.
And she wants to bank on it. But I genuinely feel she just loved the holiday season and the spirit of the holiday season so much.
People like this have what I call the best kind of delusion. It's like when you're a little delusional in the best way, because what you're pitching is, it's like a courage and a bravery, and I'm going to say it, a hint of delusion that I wish I sometimes had, because I think you need it to really make huge.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. And I think it's, and I think even as an entrepreneur, you try to, I look for it in people.
Yeah.
Because you just know they're never going to stop.
Right.
So it's just, idea has to be somewhat plausible. And if this were brought to me and it was like, listen, people are driving cross country and it's these station wagons filled with children and, mom, dad, pull over. Remember, like, this is not the time of the 2.2 child families. This is the time of like 3, 4 kids, 8 kids. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
It wasn't birth control. It wasn't planning. They let God handle it or whoever, biology. And anyway, think about all the kids. What would they want to do if they're nagging mom and dad to pull over? Right? They're going to want to pull over to Santa Claus.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would want to, and I'm
Right?
in my 20s.
So the Talbots go and purchase an 80-acre site, 12 miles north of Kingman, and right on the west side of the U.S. Highway 93, which is the Hoover Dam Grand Highway.
One more quick question about this.
Sure.
So I was kind of thinking about it, and of course, all of this is sort of framed with the backdrop of the Public Works Association, FDR's New Deal stuff. Do you think, when we think about this time, FDR was sort of looked at as almost the Santa Claus of America, right?
Yes, 100%.
It was this attitude of giving, and however you feel about the New Deal and whether or not it was a successful contribution to American capitalism, you have to wonder if that sort of mentality and that spirit was a little influential to the development of this town.
I think it totally was. I mean, just think of the Hoover Dam, 16,000 jobs.
Yep. It's really interesting.
To create more work for people, and this was something that she was going to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah,
Because of all those people, and then all the people visiting there. So yes, I totally think it was the right time for something like this. She bills herself as Mrs. Santa Claus. Surprise, surprise. Here's the weird thing. This is why she had such cognones, as we say in Italian.
Yeah.
This is why she had such guts. It's in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Okay? If it snows, it can't snow very much. And here's the other kicker, which is going to be the ultimate curse of Santa Claus, Arizona. There's no water.
There's no water.
But leave it to her and her will to even find the workaround to make this place successful without water.
It's amazing.
But there's no water. She's got her Texaco gas station. And, as we mentioned, Zinc helps, and her husband build a couple of these structures. So you've got, I think, the Christmas Tree Inn. You have the Texaco station. Then you have some like small doll houses that one's for, I believe, for Cinderella, one's for the 3 little pigs. And this is where it also gets a little bit acid trippy because, well, I'm just saying because those aren't necessarily Christmas. So she had a lot of Disney characters. She actually had a real bona fide Disney cartoonist come and draw a lot of the Disney characters. And he would come back from time to time and repaint them. But again, not in the Christmas vein.
And that is the thing where you're in a pitch meeting with Ninon Talbot, and she's saying, we're going to have the Cinderella, or we're going to have the, the Santa Claus General Store and the Christmas Inn, and then also the 3 little pigs. And everyone goes, no, Nina, well, let's keep it to Christmas. And she says, nope, we're doing the fairy tales. And I think what Nina says is what goes. And that's probably how these meetings went down, where you just had to roll with the insanity in the brain that was Ninon Talbot, right?
I think so. I mean, I've been in meetings with these kind of people.
Yep.
And like I said, you just know they're going to keep going. Sometimes they're just going to keep going until they are left with nothing, or sometimes they'll strike gold. And I think with her, because of her will, it was just purely her will, as we'll learn as what happens to the town. It was her will and her passion that drives this to success. Because this is so long ago, and there's not a lot of people who knew her personally. You know, you don't have a lot of references for this. It's not like it's a super famous person. I mean, listen, I'm a fan of even old Hollywood and a fan of the Three Stooges. And Curly Howard of the Three Stooges, who I think is one of the most underrated comedic performers of all time. It's not a lot known about him.
Yeah.
You know, so now imagine Nina Talbot, how little we're going to know about her. But here's something that was very telling, and it was in the article, maybe Christmas wasn't meant to last forever, by Douglas Town, was the fact that the science fiction writer Robert Heinlein, before he became a sci-fi writer, drove through the town and created a short story, or used it as part of as an integral part of one of his first short stories that he wrote. Now, Robert Heinlein is known as the dean of science fiction. I don't know if you know him, but Starship Troopers, Robert Heinlein.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, no longer with us, but this guy is the real deal. And for whatever reason, he goes through Santa Claus, drinks it all in, and incorporates it into the setting of a short story about a young girl who's on a summer vacation with her parents, and she's trying to diet because she wants to surprise her boyfriend that she's in love with by coming home from the vacation in better shape than when she left. Mm-hmm. So may I read you a passage from his book?
Kevin, I'd like nothing more.
That describes, okay, so he described the areas, the grimmest desert in the world, the family spots, an unorthodox holiday way station. Maureen describes approaching the roadside business. The sign read Santa Claus, Arizona. I blinked at it, thinking I was at last seeing a mirage. There was a gas station, all right, but that wasn't all. You know what most desert gas stations look like, put together out of odds and ends? Here was a beautiful fairy tale cottage with wavy candy stripes in the shingles. It had a broad brick chimney, and Santa Claus was about to climb down the chimney. Between the station and the cottage were two incredible little doll houses. One was Mark Cinderella's house, and Mistress Mary, quite contrary, was making the garden grow. The other one needed no sign, the three little pigs, and the big bad wolf was stuck in its chimney. So I'm going to cut ahead because he ended up referencing again later. But I'm going to cut ahead what you see later in the article. We went inside. A bell bonged, and a sweet contralto voice boomed. Come in, dinner's ready. The inside was twice as big as the outside. It was the prettiest dining room imaginable, fresh, new, and clean. Heavenly odors drifted out of the kitchen. The owner of the voice came out and smiled at us. We knew who she was. Her kitchen apron had Mrs. Claus embroidered right across it. She made me feel slender. But for her, it was perfectly right. Can you imagine Mrs. Claus being skinny? So that kind of gives you an idea of the setting.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, in the middle of the Mojave Desert, and do you understand? It gets to be about 120 degrees. I also want to know, how some of these cars drove through that. If you ever, any summer that you drive to Vegas, and by the way, this is about an hour and a half outside of Vegas.
Yep.
But if you drive to Vegas in the summertime here from LA, you will see on the side of the road, probably, and this is no exaggeration, you'll see about 30 cars along the way pulled over with engines blown. Mm-hmm. Because the heat is so bad. So I can't even believe.
You can see it radiate from the ground.
I just want to say, y'all, this photo we got up here, literally, Kevin was describing it.
Wow.
I mean, we got the three little pigs.
Yep.
Right here in the left corner. We have Cinderella's house. I mean, this photo's, it's like it came off the page. This should be on the page.
Wow.
Yeah, and take a good mental picture of that, because it'd be impossible to find a modern picture of that, which is why
Correct.
We'll get into that later. They had a little train that went through the town called the Santa Claus Arizona Express, or the old 1225, and little kids would be able to ride that on the way, kind of through the property. Mm-hmm. But what really made this place work wasn't just Nina's personality, but her cooking. So people would come from, I guess, all over, including celebrities, just to come have some of her cuisine. Apparently, breakfast and lunch were the famous things served. Sundays were dinner, and then you could have the place open for special dinners.
Wow!
So she would host for you, and this is what she said. The everyday routine, this is from Ninon herself, the everyday routine provision of ordinary food is not the policy of this cafe. Choice products provided by top quality wholesalers may always be found on the diner's table. This, combined with the consummate skill of master chefs, without exception, provides the patron with an outstanding meal of deliciousness and savor.
Wow. It just makes my mouth water.
So she would serve up these 5-course holiday-themed meals in the Christmas Tree Inn: Eskimo fruit cocktail, North Sea shrimp cocktail, poinsettia tomato soup, reindeer and chicken soup, chicken a la Snow White, Mary's Little Lambs, filet mignon a la Santa Claus, snow sherbet, evergreen salad, and North Pole salad. But the desserts were supposed to be the big deal, which was starter's cake, which I don't know what that is, nor do I know what Fairyland pie is. But her Kris Kringle rum pie was her featured dish, and I actually found the recipe.
Oh, Keven.
Okay, so we have the recipe, and we also have the which we'll have to find a way to put up, maybe on the Apple Podcast page, and maybe one of these weeks we'll have to make it.
I will say, Kev, quickly, I've gotten kind of into baking. It's become a fun hobby for me.
Okay.
I don't think any listeners will be shocked to see that this man donning a Santa hat.
Well, is there anything more Christmas than baking or holidays?
I don't think so.
Baking?
Exactly. I've been watching a lot of the Great British Bake Off, and I'd have to assume that the cross section of GBBO fans and fans of this podcast might be pretty big. But I will attempt a rum pie. I'm on a little diet right now, but that will be my celebration. As I would love to try to make a rum pie, and I'll bring it in.
So get this. Does anyone here know a fella by the name of Duncan Hines?
Duncan Hines. Is that Pittsburgh Heinz Field or? No, I don't.
Oh my God, the Gen Z kills us. Do you know Duncan Hines?
I do
Cake
from the
mix.
article, Kev, but I feel like I cheated.
Duncan Hines cakes?
Cake mix?
Yes. Do you know that?
No, Aaron. Aaron knows that.
Aaron. Okay, very good. So Aaron, who's younger than you. Good job, Aaron. Aaron, our little elf intern.
Our little elf. And I will give her credit, co-costume designer for today's episode
Yes,
as well.
very nice. Yeah,
Yes.
we are wearing the colors,
Yes.
as we like to say. But so Duncan Hines, before he becomes super famous and before he ends up, creating his cake mixes, which go on to make him zillions, he actually stopped in there to eat, and he ends up writing about this as well. He added it to his national list of preferred eateries.
Wow, and that's a big deal.
Huge deal.
It's very rare that these kind of niche, kitschy tourist attractions actually back up what they say.
Right.
So the fact that this was like prestige, premier eating.
But that's why build it and they will come if you have the heart.
Yes.
See, we see a lot of people, switching over to, we just did Bar Rescue here at AfterBuzz, and we see people that will open a bar, but their heart's just to play bar owner, but it's not really to own a bar and serve great drinks and create an amazing atmosphere for somebody. This lady, this was it. It was all about Christmas. It was all about sharing joy.
And quality.
And then, how would you share joy if you didn't have quality, Jeff?
Good
Do you see
point,
what I'm saying,
Kev.
where it all ties in?
Yeah.
I guess her cranberry Waldorf salad recipe was also published in the New Ford Treasury of Favorite Recipes from Famous Restaurants. So I would actually like to know what that is as well. Because actually I'd eat that, right? So I guess we're cutting ahead, and the other thing I guess is people would go here after church too. So I want to say the locals also enjoyed this as well. So it wasn't just people with tourists, because her food was so good. But I'm reading more from Robert Heinlein. You will have a hard time choosing a low-caloric meal here, Mrs. Claus says to the girl. I've never been able to work up interest in such cooking. I'll serve you the same as your parents. You can eat what you wish and as little as you wish. And that's probably what she said to him.
I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So this thing becomes so big that neighboring town of Kingman lets them become officially Santa Claus, Arizona, and lets them have their own post office. And now they're taking letters in from Santa. So now they're getting tons and tons of letters from all over the country. And of course, what do you think Nina does with the letters?
I'm sure our listeners won't be shocked to learn, but she didn't respond to just one. She didn't respond to 10. She made it her life's mission to respond to every single letter that came through that post office.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy.
This is insane.
Yes. That is a little insane. Like, we have
But I love this about her.
I know.
If we had her today, when we get into our holiday debate later about
Yes.
what to do with this town, if she were alive, oh my goodness, and we could get behind her, we'd be right back in business.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But she also does something interesting too. So everyone who visits there, she sends them an annual Christmas card. Thank you for coming. And how does she do this? Well, she has a registry. People sign in, and they have their address, or they'll have their license plate. And back then, it was easy to attain that information. And so everyone got a card. Thank you for coming. We're going to see you again. And make sure the kids, tell them to be good. Santa's watching. Really cool. Okay. Now, her husband dies in 42. Okay. But this actually doesn't cause the demise. She starts expanding her business operations. She ends up buying more property in Kingman. And in 44, she remarries a retired Air Force major. And the place is continuing to gain more and more fame. And she comes up with the idea like, hey, and maybe this was the plan all along. Why don't we create a residential neighborhood in Santa Claus? And we do have, and maybe we can put this up later as well, we have a sketch of what the neighborhood was supposed to look like. And I think the names of the streets, it was the development itself was called Santa Claus Acres, but the streets were called Kris Kringle Avenue, St. Nicholas Parkway, Reindeer Wash, and Joel McRae was a Hollywood celebrity at the time, actually bought one of the lots of land sight unseen. And I think a lot of people did. And there's someone else who's interviewed in this who says Ninon Talbot could sell anything to anybody.
Yeah.
So when she just said, we're going to have Santa Claus Acres and people are going to be able to live here and it's going to be amazing because we're going to have the spirit of Christmas year round, people were buying the lots.
Crazy.
But there's just one thing. There's still no water.
Still no water.
And so when you went there to eat, they would say, please, we're far away from the North Pole. We don't have water here. So please conserve. And what they would do is they would drive in gallons and gallons of water.
They would truck it in. So if you can picture these giant oil tankers that you see on the highway, I presume fill this with water, and that's how we get our provisions for Santa Claus, Arizona. It's interesting. There was a potential groundwater option here, but the water was...
That'll come later.
Oh, I apologize. I'm getting ahead.
So we're still in phase one.
Phase one, okay.
There's 3 phases of Santa Claus. There's phase 1, which is the Talbots and Ninon.
Yes.
There's phase 2, where the doctor and his wife come in. Mm-hmm. And then there's just the phase 3. I just feel like even in our country, everything from like the mid to late 60s through the 70s just was shit. You know what I mean? It was our country's hangover.
Yeah.
It was when drugs and it's just everything, like all the great things from World War II just started to, that World War II generation that survived the Depression, that won a great war, and I think the excesses and the freedoms that we all got as children, this is where...
No one was shaving. No one was showering. Everyone had long
this
hair.
is where the wheels were coming off the wagon.
Yes.
But we'll get there, Jeff. We're still in phase 1.
I'm getting excited.
So she obviously has got her troubles, because she can't get water. But it doesn't deter her. What really knocks her off her feet more than anything is even though she was an amazing businesswoman, she was a gambler. So along with her, probably love of food, she loved to gamble.
She loved to gamble.
And the problem is Vegas is only an hour away. And they said that there were times where she would just gamble away everything she would make from her properties. She would stay at tables 24 hours straight, gambling it all away.
In some ways, though, it totally adds up, you know?
And as the contractor Zink said, she could have been a rich woman, but Las Vegas got most of it. Mm-hmm. So I think with the second husband dies in 1947. So between her age, her size, 2 husbands, and all the gambling, I think it just finally got the best of her. And in 1950, when she was 62, she sold Santa Claus and she moved back to Los Angeles, where her children resided.
And you know what? You think of it that too, where she had been nurturing this community of her own children, right? But at a certain point, if you move away from your kids, I wonder if she started to miss them. I mean, she had to have been an incredible mom.
It just seems to me she was tired.
Yeah.
And then when you're tired, you don't want the fight, and you don't want to, and you'd rather just go be with your children and your grandchildren. I think it was basically a one-woman war to keep this place going because of all those odds. And I just give her so much credit for doing it and for getting this far.
Incredible.
So she ends up selling it to Doc and Irma Bromagam. Bromagam? Bromaghim. Bromagam. And they actually, continued a lot of her traditions and were able to keep it going. And in 51, the Kingman Miner, which still exists now in a digital form, I looked up. And by the way, these were mining towns in the 1800s and the early 1900s. So that's who was there.
Right.
But they ended up getting a write-up by the miners saying what a really cool place it was. And through the 50s, it ends up getting publicity and people are still into it. I would think even post World War II, probably, the boom of the economy, I would think that would make this something nice for you to stop off and see.
I think so too. And, we talked about sort of the optimistic, doe-eyed FDR era. We also have the optimistic, doe-eyed era of Ike. And I think Eisenhower's spirit seems to align with this kind of as well.
Well, the first crack, though, in the foundation is the doctor and his wife admit it's just too much to do year-round in 1954.
Yep.
And so then they go to 6 months of Christmas, like us. But don't laugh,
Sorry.
Ryan.
That was great.
But they realize, we've got to get water here to make all this work. We've got to get water. So they drill over 2,000 feet into the earth.
Wow.
And no water comes up.
2,000 feet.
More than 2,000 feet. And no water comes up. And in 1965, they finally sell the property, ending phase 2 of Santa Claus.
It's interesting. Both parties sort of fell victim to their own forms of gambling. Nina's was in the traditional sense, but these doctors are gambling on the idea that they're going to find water. That's a huge investment, right? And if they find it, they make it. But alas, no dice.
And I feel like if we knew more about the doctor and his wife, I probably feel like they loved Christmas too and thought this would be fun and what a great way to retire and meet new people every day. And but again, her cooking was probably so amazing.
Yeah.
It's really hard. She's an artist, so it's really hard to replace that.
Right.
A quick question. So was it still the Christmas Tree Inn when they took it over?
It was.
And we had a few people in the chat. We have Brandy in the chat asking, she just thinks it's really sweet how they ran that inn, and they were also curious about whether or not it was still run as an inn before selling the second time.
Yes, it was. And and they say inn, but really it only had a couple of places to sleep above the gas station, I believe. People would camp there because remember, this is the time we're still kind of a wilderness nation, so people would camp on the site there. But this takes us into phase 3. Which is the demise of Santa Claus. About 8 different owners over the period from 65 to the early 90s come in and out. And it continues to just decay. And you're getting those type of people in there, it seems like, that are not reinvesting in the property to do the upkeep or whatever. And it couldn't have helped to that more and more people just wanted to get right to Vegas and gamble.
And the highway culture changed as well.
Yes.
I mean, I just think the novelty and the sort of appeal of roadside stands doesn't quite carry the same weight as it used to. I think
Right.
there are other options. Every family goes to Disney World now. It's kind of become like the tourism
But
culture.
by the way, it's about getting right to Disney World.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is what the writer says: the mild-mannered travelers of a quaint backwater. The mild-mannered travelers of post-World War II gave way to an increasingly rushed and occasionally dangerous public, which undoubtedly took its toll on the people running Santa Claus. So, in '91, there's a place called the Grasshopper Junction, and it's a roadside business on right up the street, and people working there were murdered.
Wow.
So this is the darkness that's creeping in. This is where serial killers and
But I get that, Kev, because
Yeah.
when I drive by roadside attractions now, maybe this is a sad realization or a sad reality about our modern culture, but I get some of those vibes.
This is a great quote. The Christmas Tree Inn was transformed from a beacon of fine dining to the fast food nadir of microwave sandwiches. The Texaco service station closed and was converted to an antique shop, which allegedly boasted the finest selection of music boxes in Arizona. Not exactly a hot ticket item. Desperate to unload the property, one owner put Santa Claus up for auction in 1980, but he called the $50,000 winning bid ridiculous and refused to sell. By 1981, get this, junk cars driven by mannequins populated the parking lot to the backdrop of warbling holiday tapes played on low-fidelity loudspeakers in an effort to lend the appearance of activity to the struggling roadside business.
Horrifying.
How creepy.
So horrifying.
Right?
There's nothing scarier to me than like an undressed mannequin, a faceless mannequin. This is
In a junk box car.
just a parking lot
Good.
full of mismatched cars filled with faceless mannequins.
And music playing, a warbled music on a cheap speaker.
It's Black Mirror. I don't know if you've seen that
so
show.
black.
But
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think
Yeah.
it's sad because earlier on you were like, Kevin, why doesn't someone make a movie and put Melissa McCarthy in it? And I know what you're thinking, Jeff. You're thinking of the sweetness and maybe some humor with Melissa. But I'm saying if modern day Hollywood got this, this is Netflix, this is Stranger Things, or it's Black Mirror. It's dark and twisted. There's a million people getting killed, in Hollywood's version of the
I'm
story.
just saying,
Unfortunately,
four-part miniseries. We get a flavor of each.
Actually,
of it.
no. You know what? I think you could do something comedically with Melissa McCarthy and just kind of.
Well, there's a twinge of darkness there too. I hate to say it, but the fact
Well,
that
she
gambling was
gambles,
Nina's,
yeah.
there's something there too. I mean, it's not all, and just the tragedy.
You know
of-
what? Yeah, and I'm always on the. And as this show goes on, I want to look at. Obviously, take a deep dive on holiday specials and holiday movies, but then also the holiday movies that are cool and specials that you haven't heard about, and then what are some of the new ones that can be made? Might be on something, Jeff.
Wow.
Yeah, right. It's crazy. So in the same year, Santa Claus is erased from the official state map.
That is heartbreaking.
So sad.
So sad. So you guys, over time, there were grand redevelopment schemes. In 76, we're going to make it a children's foster home. In 77, trailer park. In 1980, a cocktail lounge. And then finally in 1984, a Swiss Village shopping center. None came to fruition.
Wow. Oh my gosh. By the
And
way,
then one of the reps mentioned that he couldn't be bothered answering all the children's letters that arrived every holiday season.
That to me is perfectly symbolic of why it didn't survive. You need a Nina. You need
Yeah,
someone who's going to
that's
respond
right.
to every letter.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think of the analogy. This where we work, AfterBuzz TV, only runs if Kevin's steering the ship. No one else could do this.
No, yeah, you need a maniac.
You're the Nina of AfterBuzz,
Yeah, exactly.
Kev.
Who just wants to light money on fire to talk about their favorite TV shows
But
and
think about
see people be happy with their
think about
careers.
what you've produced, though. You
That's
know,
true.
and so
No, well, that's why I feel for Nina.
yeah.
I do. So in 1993, Santa Claus closes for good.
tragic.
So there's another book in 1987, Elvis Presley Boulevard, From Sea to Shining Sea, almost. I've actually read this book and I completely glossed over Santa Claus, Arizona. I read it because of I love history, and he kind of is going over the weird parts of this country in the book, and he describes the aura of gloom that had settled over Santa Claus. Quote: "It was on its last legs, styrofoam silver bells, strands of burned out Christmas lights, and faded plastic likenesses of old St. Nick garnished this little village. A lopsided, artificial 20-foot tree whistled in the wind beside a broken Coke machine and an empty ice freezer. 2 of the 3 buildings were padlocked. Through their windows, encrusted with layers of sand and decade-old aerosol snow, Jim and I saw dusty, overturned fiberglass statuettes of elves and reindeers. The gift shop stocked no seasonal items. Its shelves were littered with flea market knickknacks at antique shop prices. Battered paperbacks cost $1. What little money the place generated must have come from the short order grill and the soft drinks cooler. On a stool behind the counter, cash register, a haggard 50-ish man looked up from his circle the word puzzle and asked if we needed anything. In his 2003 memoir, A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, Ditto Montel briefly notes passing by the once charming roadside attraction, though he mistakenly places it somewhere between the Grand Canyon and the Navajo Indian Reservation. Our route took us through a town in Arizona called Santa Claus, population 10, he writes. It consisted of 1 buffalo, 10 people, and 5 houses in the middle of the desert, all lit up and decorated for Christmas. We stopped for a quick picture with the buffalo, then fled on. So it's taken off the maps, and what remains are what's left of the 2 buildings, and you can look online and see them now. Just a few years back,
This is it.
The irony of the fact, if you guys are watching on the YouTube, we have a photo of one of the dilapidated Santa Claus buildings, and it says, "This is it," with an exclamation point. And the irony of that statement, standing alone in a barren desert, speaks volumes, I think.
This is it.
This is it.
It's just gone. It's
Now,
barren.
they're listing the sale of all of this for $700,000.
That's very overpriced.
Well, what they're banking on is that another highway is going to be going in, and they're hoping someone will develop it, and they also want to put in some more residential neighborhoods, but they still haven't figured out the water problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of experts are saying that even some of the wells you can pipe to, you're going to drain, you're going to tap them out.
Yeah.
We called to try to purchase.
You didn't.
I did.
Oh my goodness.
And the
Oh.
the lady from the Chamber of Commerce laughed at me. she did that. That's exactly what she did. She just cracked up, Jeff.
Sorry, Kev. But then what? She laughed at you, and then?
I just said, I feel like this is a piece of history and American history, and we have some ideas on maybe we can maybe how we can make this kind of work. And she laughed again, and she said, I'm gonna have to get back to you. And so I've been calling ever since, and I've not gotten a call back.
Do they know your close ties to many powerful Hollywood?
Yeah, but you don't want to say that, Jeff, because then they're gonna, charge you an arm and a leg.
Oh.
We want to pay what it's worth. We don't want to pay what they think it's going to be worth.
Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
I just want to say, so if water is the big issue here, right? That's
Yep.
the reason that's the start of all the problems from what I can tell. What would be that solution? Because I think regardless of getting this property or not, what is the solution, Kevin?
Yeah, my young elf, we're gonna get there.
Okay.
Our next segment is we're gonna go over like what the heck we do with this. I want to debate it with you guys, but I will say this: Town says he does give. First of all, in that little short story, the girl gets back to her guy, and of course the guy is so happy to see her, and he says, "What this country needs is more plump girls and guys like me who appreciate them." Mm-hmm. So she went back and she got her guy and she got the Christmas spirit. So that was nice. But Nina Douglas, little epilogue on her. Not that much is known except that she passed away at the age of 75 in Orange County, California on June 8th, 1963. And Robert Heinlein, the sci-fi writer, in his afterword, said this of Talbot: "If she is alive, she's at least in her 80s. I don't want to find out. I prefer to think of her in that perfect place where all perfect things go, sitting in her kitchen surrounded by her gnomes, preparing her hearty ambrosia for Mark Twain and Homer and others of her equal."
I love it.
So anyway, I ended up trying. I went on Ancestry.com. I know she has children, and I tried to see if we couldn't find out where maybe her children or her grandchildren were, because maybe they would know more about her. So I would like to stay on the story of Ninon Talbot. Now, the question is, guys, with Santa Claus, Arizona, it's one of two things going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's either going to be left to continue to ruin, or it's going to all get knocked down, and some kind of development's going to go there. So, do you guys? Well, I guess it's hard to ask you what you think. I guess the question is, how would we revive it?
It's a great question. I believe we're in our Hall of Debate segment, so we're kind of talking about, there are some options with Santa Claus right now. Either its time has passed. I will say it's hard for me to picture a world in which this town survives without Nina. If a very important question I have around Nina specifically, if Mrs. Claus were alive today, what would she look like? Would she be someone who's maybe overweight? Would she be the kind of person to create her own Christmas town? It was Nina, the resurrected or living embodiment of Mrs. Claus in the United States. I don't know. We're thinking about.
All right. So what do you? But Jeff, so you're saying don't revive? Are you the other type of person who says leave ruins alone and let them decay and wither away and move on to new things, or are you the type who's the preservationist?
I think, Kev, that's a great question, because we either let it die, we try to resurrect the town, or you pitched relocating Santa Claus.
Well, first, can we start with
this?
Yeah. Do you let it go, or do you try to fix it?
Fix it in what capacity? Like
either make it some kind of attraction. The ruins of it.
Like Stonehenge.
Well, I'm just saying. Here's one option: is you could semi-preserve it, where you almost have you make it a rest stop. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You put in, maybe vending machines, things like that, to get some income, and you have little plaques.
Yeah.
Here's what happened here. Here's what stars ate here. That tell a little bit of story, almost like some of the modern day, some of the ghost towns we have here that are still around. Do you do that with it? Do you, or do you move in and fix it? I mean, are you okay with it just withering away is what I'm trying to say.
No, I'm not, Kevin. I think what you pitched about...
No, because some people are. Some people go, listen, let it go and move on to new things. Like this was a weird thing in time. It's not like it's the Colosseum in Rome. And let it go. Knock it down and let's put up a mall.
No, Kev, I think what you pitched...
What do you think?
What you pitched is the answer. You set up one more building, and that's
one answer. I have a lot of answers, Jeff. You haven't come to me.
So here's the answer I like that you pitched, which is you put up a little shack that offers tours of Santa Claus, Arizona, and that's someone's day job, is walking you through the town.
Donations to keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'd pay $10 for a tour of Santa Claus.
Yeah. Well, then you're gonna have a guide and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think if you could just sit there and be, self-sufficient, and maybe, you have some cameras, whatever, just if there's vandals. But I think you really try to play on people in that regard. But before we get to this, because I have some other solutions too, Ryan, might blow your mind. Okay. Excuse me, Jeff. But Ryan, what do you think? Do you think you let something like this go, or is it historic? Is it enough of a landmark to figure it out?
It's a really great question. Well, first off, this research and all the details you provided are absolutely phenomenal, and I commend you for that. I think, as an entrepreneurship minor, what I took away from this was more, you have to preserve, I think, the spirit in which Nina created this town and kept it going. And yeah, it was a gamble, and yeah, she was known for gambling, but it meant a lot to a lot of people. Personally, the business decision, I think, is to let it go, but maybe use what the creative energy that they had to make something new out of it.
Okay. So, what if we called HGTV?
Okay.
And the way they all came together to fix the Brady house, what if we got them to do a holiday special?
Wow.
Where they go in. And by the way, I know, with my father-in-law, I could do some
renovations.
I could make some vast improvements. There's probably going to be some structural damage too.
Would one of them be a well? Because it sounds like there's not a...
No, but again, there's other ways to monetize this. So let's just say HGTV comes in. Because by the way, what are they doing with... They've renovated the Brady house. What are they doing with that? I don't know what they're going to do with it. I don't know if they're going to sell it, or I would think I would keep it as an asset for HGTV. But then what do you do with it? Maybe they do live viewings there. I don't know. But that's one idea. Would HGTV want to come in and do this? Imagine like the Property Brothers and the whole team looking at old plans, and then a little bit on Nina and how do we reconjure this? Okay, so that's one thing. But I think you guys, it doesn't become a daily destination. I think it becomes, imagine if there were events that could take place there. Okay, imagine, you guys, I was thinking of this one. And by the way, these ideas I'm throwing out could be applied to a new town if we choose. But why isn't there a Burning Man for Christmas?
Oh, I love that.
Why isn't there think of if you could make this a sacred city.
The Mecca of Christmas
where
lovers.
wishes come true, and it's just goodness and positivity and giving and forgiveness and all these things you just say in these 6 acres. That's it. When you're here, that's what it's about.
Wow.
And so what if there were just a couple of annual events? Like maybe it's turned more into, you ever notice how fairgrounds, you ever notice these places that are just acres and acres, and they have a big giant gate, and they get open for maybe 1 or 2 country fairs a year, but then it's like conventions, and they use them. You guys understanding what I'm saying? Like where,
I'm from Ohio, Kev. Don't forget that.
Well, I don't know if you guys just do them in parks or whatever, but we have
fairgrounds in Ohio.
We have fairgrounds that are just designated for events. They're not open for business year round, and you just wonder if you could turn it into more of a fairground. And this became a place where people could almost make pilgrimages to. Yeah. To go and to either get the Christmas spirit, or they just want to feel a little better. I think there's just a lot. You could have a chapel there. People could get married there.
Wow.
So think of it like that way. And then remember, to have it be a town, you really only have to employ one person. And that person just basically gets to live there for free and gets a small salary. And that just keeps vandals and things from coming on property and doing anything wrong to it. But I feel like that's one way it could work. And so the question is, and I don't think Santa Claus is ready for that. I think that they would be greedy. Well, whatever the area is. And that's the other thing too. No one could give me a straight answer on what it is. Is it part of Kingman? Well, it's close to Kingman. Well, what is it? What is this area called? Because it's now only Santa Claus a myth. It's not legally Santa Claus. But but if they would be fair and be like, it's probably worth less than $100,000. It's not worth anything. If they would give you the fair price, or maybe the state, by the way, we have to find out if it's a private owner or if it's owned by the state. Maybe the state is taking it by now. I don't know. We have to do more due diligence. But the other question is, do you just go out and find acres of land in areas that are empty or abandoned and do the same thing?
I don't think so, Kev.
No, we can't build our own Santa Claus.
I think we call it something else. I just think...
Well, there's other Santa Clauses in this country.
In Arizona, though?
No, I'm not saying Arizona. I'm saying you just find... Because, by the way, you're still battling the elements, the heat. You're battling a lot being in Arizona.
Yeah, it's true.
So
I think if you did it in another state...
Like Nevada, right on the border of California, or maybe some of the more obscure Northern California was a little bit more obscure. I don't know.
The trick here might be marketing. It's just how are you going to get people there?
Listen, if only we had a network that went out to hundreds of millions of people. If only the person who ran our network wasn't super famous and connected to everybody from the Obamas to the Clintons to the Trumps.
If only.
If only. So, for me, but the question is it something that, people would want? So, that's a question I want to throw out to our fans of the 6 months of Christmas, our fans of the Christmas 24/7. You tell us, should we keep pursuing Christmas Arizona, or should we let it die? And then, if that's not the case, should we pursue trying to build our own Christmas town and finding a way that it just manages itself.
We got some people in the chat actually commenting on that. But we got Brandy saying, Kev can do a lot of things. This might be too much. Its time has passed. I don't think Kev can't revive it. That's a challenge, I think. And then other people say, HGTV, Kevin always thinking big.
Yeah. Right? Can you imagine how fun that would be? And a great holiday series?
And Kevin, if you in theory bookended it, I don't know if HGTV has done original programming yet, but if their first original scripted film was the Ninon Talbot story as a lead-in to rebuilding Santa Claus.
As a lead-in. You're right. Well, here's the thing. No, you would do that somewhere else.
Maybe. I'm just thinking
and then it would be, yeah.
It's a chance to couple the programming.
And I think the Ninon Talbot story could be told. I absolutely think it could be told. And I think, Melissa McCarthy's the type, her and her husband. I think I'm going to, if and whenever I bump into them again, I think I think this is one to float by them.
Yeah.
Because I really think she would get such a kick out of it, and she'd make it a dark comedy.
Totally.
But Christmas movies always succeed.
Oh, yeah?
They always make money. And, unfortunately, that's our business is driven by.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's stuff to think about. It's funny. Baron Davis, the ex-NBA player, two-time All-Star, he's a big film producer in Hollywood. And he has an app called Cream. It's Christmas something, and Black Santa Claus. He's developing this cartoon and this feature film, and he's really into this world. So he loved our show. He loved our network. And when I mentioned this to him, he said, he goes, and again, because he's such a practical businessman, he was like, no, let's just let's buy a building and make it a Christmas experience that you go through.
Okay.
Like you kind of go on a little
tour.
Yeah.
Winter Wonderland.
Yeah, there is in Connecticut. There's in a very, very small town. I have to find it, but there's a guy who has a giant model of a Christmas town that's probably about 1,000 square feet, and it's covered in. He has a whole glass case around it, and it's open year round, and it's a little weird and offbeat. And I think in the next few weeks I'm gonna be home. I'll be checking in. I'll bring you guys some pictures. But I don't know. It gives us some ideas. It gives us a lot to discuss. I love the challenge.
Yeah.
I love the challenge. And I feel like, maybe HGTV is the spot. I don't know. We have to do more due diligence. Who owns the town? And are they willing to talk?
And for our listeners, if you could be sort of our team of elves as well, doing some research on our behalf, we'd appreciate it.
We would love that. Yes, because we are up to now 71 subscribers, I believe.
We're growing every day, baby. Kev, one other pitch I have for Santa Claus as it stands.
Okay.
A podcast app that's a walking tour. So you pay $2 and you get the 20-minute walking tour.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you would lean on people like, listen, our culture rocks so high-low today. Mm-hmm. We're the worst in every way, shape, and form, and then yet we're the best in every way, shape, or form. And I feel like the best of people, if they knew the story and they knew the sentiment and the spirit, and we're trying to promote that spirit, they would give.
Yeah.
I really think they would give. Jeff, before we go out, I know we have store decoration updates, and I know we have our holiday hero segment. Which one do you want to do?
I think we go out with the heroes, right?
Okay, that's fine by me.
Quick. In fact, I'd even call this news and gossip, right, Ryan? Do we want to get a little music back here?
Drop that theme?
Yes.
AfterBuzz TV News.
We do have some store decoration updates. I live in West Hollywood right now, so for LA locals, you might know the Rite Aid on the corner of Fairfax and Sunset. Very popular. 3 aisles devoted to Halloween supplies. I didn't see much Christmas yet, but the fact that probably 1/5 of the store is now dedicated to Halloween tchotchkes shows that we are in the swing of the season.
All right,
That was pretty notable.
That's a really good sign.
Yeah.
The Home Depot check, very deep on Halloween. I'm fine with it. I'm trying to get into the Halloween spirit as well because we know you guys, after the 31st, that's it.
November starts.
It's the crunch. This is the pressure is on for the 6 months of Christmas. Right now, we're just cruising.
Yep.
But this is it.
Yeah. Once November 1 hits, it's like Thanksgiving's 2 weeks away. Then the snowball.
Listen,
presumable snowball.
And for me, and I don't want any of our listeners to be afraid to put your tree up on November 1st. Day after Halloween.
Absolutely.
Let's go. And for my tree, it's Thanksgiving. It's everything. It represents Hanukkah. It represents New Year's, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's the symbol.
I love it. So those are our store decoration updates. And of course, we always end our show with what we call our Holiday Hero segment. But to make clear, guys, this is the segment where we feature good and decent human beings who are doing everything they can to channel the spirit of Kris Kringle and the holidays.
Right. And in the spirit of it.
In the spirit,
More than anything.
exactly. Yes.
Even
exactly.
If it's just, and you know what? Even if it's just not on the nose, like I'm doing this for Christmas, it's just the fact that people are out doing good things without expecting anything, just doing it for the right reason.
Yep.
Which there's nothing wrong with. And the whole idea with our show is why can't we be like this beyond the 3 weeks
Absolutely.
during the holiday season? So there's a site called Sunny Skies that I check out every now and again. And it puts up these kind of stories that are just really nice stories of people doing what I just described. So an Irish grocery store worker's act of kindness is touching the hearts of many after a customer praised the man on Facebook. So somebody saw what this guy did on Facebook and ended up putting it up as a post.
Wow.
An elderly man was trying to pay for his groceries, but his bank card was declined multiple times. And he didn't really understand what was going on. He just kept trying his card and it kept being declined. And really, he just didn't have the money, but he didn't know. One of the workers noticed and quietly went over and ran his card, paid the man's bills, and the man didn't know. You know, he just thought that his card worked and he went off on his way. And then the guy who paid just went back over to his own work and didn't say a word to anybody. But someone working there, another customer there saw and and posted on Facebook. And then, you know, the person was identified, a 35-year-old guy by the name of David Vance. And so David ended up, you know, telling the Belfast news outlet over there, last week I didn't think I did anything out of the ordinary. I just noticed one of our regular customers needed a hand. I was a bit taken aback to hear about the Facebook post and the traction it got. I don't even have Facebook myself. And then the supermarket said, customer satisfaction is at the heart of everything we do, and David is a fantastic ambassador for our business. We were delighted to see David's actions be recognized by a customer on our Facebook page, and so we were making David our customer service champion for October.
I love it.
Just a nice story, right?
Love it.
Another story up there I thought was really nice is a couple who one of the man, his dad had just died, and he was in a store, had to buy a tie, and he and his wife realized, oh, I don't even know how to tie a tie. So there was an elderly man who appears by the pictures to be got to be like late 80s, early 90s. They asked him, and he's like, oh, of course I know. So he says, of course I know how to tie a tie. He ends up tying his tie. After a few tries of getting the right length, he gently pulled it back over Kevin's head and thanked him for letting him do this. He reached out to shake hands with him and then pulled Kevin close for a hug to tell him how sorry he was to hear about losing his dad.
Wow.
He looked at me and he looked at the wife and said, take good care of him. And then, you know, her and her husband walked away quietly, having a hard time fighting back tears. But the story doesn't end there. Walking into the funeral home later that day was the old man.
Wow.
Who came in, you know, to say a prayer for the late father.
Wow.
Just nice, right?
Really nice. I love it.
Just really, really nice. You know, and so for me, so Jeff, like, here's one thing I did last week. I go to a nearby, there's a business here. I don't want to give away too much because I don't want to embarrass the people, but there's a business here that I like their product, but the place is a shit show. And I can tell it's run by a couple, and I can tell the way, you know, they treat their employees, who they are. And a lot of times, you know, if you really want to be revealed about who people are, watch how they treat their help. And they even have too much help. You know, they don't need as much help as they do. But you can tell they're just happy just to make just enough to get by. And sure enough, I start hearing their story and how they met making a play together, and they worked at this one chain and realized, hey, why don't we just do this for ourselves? And so they opened this little business, and they're very passionate, again, about the product, but the place is...
It's a mess.
It's a mess. And they're missing branding opportunities. They're missing means in which to connect with their consumers. The decor is off. And just a lot of it is, some of it is, no, yes, someone in business, experience in business can help them with. And then some might be a little elbow grease and things like that. And I was like, I kind of do this for a living, and I get hired to speak in different places about brand building and things like that. And I'm like, I'd love to help. I'm like, really? And so I was like, all right, we need this, and this. And yeah, without giving away too much, maybe I'll show you, this show will motivate me to follow through, because I gave them advice, but like a lot of people who are very overwhelmed with their lives, between children and staff, they don't have that craziness of the Ninon Talbots or the Keven Undergaros to go, all right, well, I'm just going to go without sleep for another 2 weeks.
Right.
And not every night I'll be in here. So I think I want to go in there and renovate the place and and upgrade their menu and figure out, like, there's just a couple things they could do. And as I was saying, there was a side of me saying to myself, which I hate, don't do this. This is what you always do. You go and you help all these people, and you need to be helping yourself, and you need to be, and so, and I'm walking out and saying to myself, yeah, you're right. And then I'm like, why?
Right.
What is it going to be? And like, there's a great moment. There's a movie called Scrooge, which we'll cover later. The best one.
Yes.
The Bill Murray. Scrooge.
No, that's not the best one. That's a good one.
I think it's the best rendition of that.
No, kids, we're gonna have movie time over at the Undergaro Theater, and I'm gonna teach you guys about the great Christmas classics. But no, the one with Alistair Sim in 1950.
Okay,
is the classic one. Really the closest to Dickens. And one of the ghosts says to him, Scrooge is looking back at a party he went to back in the day, when the ghost of Christmas Past visits him. And Scrooge is like, you can see his face lighting up, and he's like kind of dancing, and he's like, wow, it was so fun. And Fezziwig used to throw these parties for us. And he says, and yet what did it cost you in your mere mortal money?
Wow.
And so I always think of mere mortal money. Now, I'm not saying to withdraw all your bank accounts, like you owe it to yourselves and your families to be financially responsible. I struggle with that daily. But, sometimes it's just a few bucks, and then, putting in the time. Yeah. Giving some of your elbow grease, giving some of your advice that, you could be paid a giant consulting fee, fine. But also I can't tell you how many people let their gifts sit with them till they die. And it's just like they could have shared them.
What a waste.
There's even like I have friends, like I have a couple of friends' dads are old and bitter, old like carpenters and things. I'm like, and one we actually got out to go volunteer with a group that renovates dog shelters. And this guy's like an ace carpenter. So they go, oh my God, like we have like weekend warriors. This guy's the real deal. And next thing you know, they're like, Johnny, he's like a hero. Everyone loves him. That like so he's getting all this wonderful positive attention, and he's like, this is amazing. But he's struggling because it's like, it's always been like, what am I getting paid? What am I getting paid? People screw you, So I know we all struggle with that, but if you can responsibly, I don't want to see people, like I said, I don't want to see people put themselves, their health, or their own financial well-being in crisis. But are there ways we can kind of help other people without expecting anything back in return? And so, like, I walked out with that. Now, as I think of the story of Nina and Santa Claus, and I think, and talking about these, and especially reading these last couple of stories, it motivates me to go in there and make a difference. And I work so fast anyway, so I think I might. And then I'll update everyone for the 6 months of Christmas, just where that goes. And anyway, and if there's other people who are doing the same thing, we would love to hear. Right, Jeff?
Share us. Yeah, you can email us your holiday stories. For now, that email is info@AfterBuzzTV.com. Got a couple Christmas emails from you guys over the last couple weeks, which is great.
Yes.
We probably will get a branded email address coming up soon, but again, we're building the network with you guys. So for now, if you have any comments, holiday hero stories, feedback, thoughts, suggestions, some maybe recipes a la Nina Talbot, we'd really appreciate that.
Listen, I've got the menu here, Jeff. I actually have the recipe, but I don't want to bore our audience. I'm looking right here. Let's just say that it involves a cup of canned milk, whatever that is, 4 cups fresh milk, a dash of salt, and then just a whole plethora of other things.
Condensed milk is on the bottom shelf of the baking aisle. I know exactly where to find that.
Jeff, here we go. Listen to this. If you're on Apple iTunes, I'm giving
you
the
home.
recipe.
I'm taking it home.
And next week, Jeff, can we expect a nice
I don't know.
pie from
I don't
you?
know if next week is the week because I'm still admittedly I've got a couple
Learning.
more weeks of this diet, but I'm going to celebrate the end of this diet with a Kris Kringle rum pie recipe, and I will bring it in.
Very nice. Okay, Ryan, why don't you harness up the sleigh?
Yeah.
It's getting late, and I've got these letters to deliver. And you better be getting home, too. And remember, behave yourselves.
We did it, Kev.
Yes, epic. This episode 3.
I thought it was a pretty good show.
I enjoyed it. What? Why are you laughing?
There was a hesitation there.
Because I don't know. How do you talk about your own show? Like, I think we do a good show, and then
It's tremendous.
I go home to my wife, and I get like thrashed. I'm gonna tell you last night.
She's more of the holiday
great
spirit,
Maria
Kev.
Menounos. Last night, I said, honey. She's like, I'm having a hard time falling asleep. I said, honey, how about I recite you a bedtime Christmas story? She's like, okay. And what I was really doing was practicing to tell her the story of Santa Claus, Arizona. And so it was like by the time I got to, and then, and then she decided to make, and then they expanded it to be Santa Claus, Arizona from, the inn they had previously. And I hear the snoring.
Midway through phase 1.
No, midway through phase 1. Yeah, like it literally was like 3 minutes. I'm like, okay, it's either an amazing bedtime story to put you to sleep, or it's totally boring. And unfortunately, in Maria's case, I'm sure it was really boring. So,
Well, I think we
Whatever.
refined it for today's show.
well, the 3 of us and Brandy, I feel like we were all amused.
Absolutely. And if you guys
And
love the show,
Dino too.
and
Sorry.
Dino as well. And if you guys did love the show, hop in the comments and let us know. Let us know what you want more of. And we just want to say thanks for tuning in. Again, this is the 6 months of Christmas. I think we're a weekly show now, Kev.
Yeah, I think we are too. I think we
that's-
are too. And that's the other thing too, guys. Like, give us more topics.
Yep. Send
'cause
us
it's a bit
topics.
of it's going to be a little bit of a grind until we hit the crunch.
Absolutely. But let us know. And of course, we're live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific.
Are we officially?
I think it's happening, Kev.
Very nice.
Also, Brandy did mention in the comments, apparently in November, there is a Christmas con going on in
okay.
November.
Well, we'll send press. Luckily, we have roving
Interesting.
reporters and press kids.
And also, you had made the mistake of saying we're only 6 hours away from Santa Claus, Arizona.
Yeah.
So prompting a trip and some video footage. I think the thing is we got to find out who owns it, because maybe the owner would let HETV come in and just renovate it.
Yeah.
Why not? And they can still own it.
Absolutely. Well, make sure you guys stay tuned on that. And of course, we'll be here every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember to always let the spirit of Christmas be the center of your life. Do something nice for someone else, and make it a great Monday, guys, and a great week. We'll see you next week, Monday at 4 p.m.
Merry Christmas.
From Chairman Elves, Keven Undergaro, and Maria Menounos, we would like to thank you for tuning in. Until next time, do your best to make every day Christmas. Ho, 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 ho.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!